There's ROCKSTEADY at King of the Pit TV.
Yes, now, bless now. Don't forget to rest now. Des Rocksteady, King of the Pit TV. Little review for you. We just listened to Stained Class, okay? The fourth studio record by Priest. Or at least that's what Wikipedia tells me, so correct me if I'm wrong. It got recommended to me by my man Nate via the Patreon. Says you're going to have to put some Priest on. Prior to this record, I'd heard Rock-A-Roller. And prior to Rock-A-Roller, I'd heard, what's it called? Breaking the Law. And that was how familiar I was with Judas Priest. I didn't like Breaking the Law. I think it's overrated. Don't think it's that good a tune. Rock-A-Roller, I didn't have a great... I thought it was quite boring. Although, it was a sign of the times. It was a very early record. I knew further on down the line, such as my experience with Motorhead so far. I've just listened to the debut Motorhead record. And it wasn't great, but I know what comes up. There's going to be lots of fantastic material, and I knew that with Priest. So we've jumped the gun. We've jumped all the way to the fourth record. We've Stained Class through this recommendation, and I'm very appreciative that I got recommended this because I needed a good excuse to understand Priest a bit better. How can I call myself a metalhead of any sorts without a clear understanding or, little bit of knowledge about what Priest were about and what they provided and what foundation they laid out for the metals to come. I mean, people in the comment sections were talking about this band is on par with Sabbath as far as their contributions to metal music. How crazy is that? Some may dispute that. Some may say, well, come on, Sabbath are Sabbath, but people say that because there's a different element Priest bring to the table that Sabbath didn't. Now, let's get onto this record. 10 tracks. It's quite a lengthy record, in all fairness. So, we're averaging out, I would argue, at around 5 minutes across the board per tune if we averaged out the song lengths. And for 10 tracks, that's quite a lengthy record, especially when you relate this record to other great metal bands, especially of the times. We're looking at 7 if not 8 tracks on a record, generally speaking, for these great records. And as far as song, we'd probably average out about 40 minutes on a record for these fantastic timeless metal records. At least arguably in the 80s, you know what I mean? This is 78, this got brought out, so maybe a little more influence from the rock bands of the time. But it was a long record, and I would say that's not a downside. That's subjective to me. To me personally, I don't have the attention span for a record of this length. Okay, I just quite simply don't, unless it's Oasis, unfortunately. So it was quite a long record. Now let's get onto the music. The riffs were great. The production value was debatable. The production value was good as far as there was an incredible organic clarity when it came to the instrumentation and how tight it was produced, how, well it was produced. It was definitely a well-produced record, but there wasn't the metal wall of sound. There wasn't the metal emphasis and blow your ears off high octane power that I actually expected from Judas Priest. I actually expected them at this point to have a big booming, crazy, riff centric, full frontal attack. I did expect that, so it's quite anticlimactic to hear that it wasn't the case, in all fairness. But that being said, it was still a great sounding record. As opposed to the guitars being fully frontal, it was definitely Rob Halford's record. It was about putting them vocals there at the front. That's what I heard. All right, the vocals were brilliant. The higher registers Rob can hit, especially on this record, were absolutely mind-boggling. Fantastic high vocals, great vibrato on the vocal. And riff-wise, some fantastic riffs, some really good riffs, some really, 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 really good riffing. Really good riffing. Drumming was pretty good. I mean, it was nothing mind-blowing, but it was pretty good. Bass guitar, if you were to ask me about any of the fine bass guitar moments, I'll tell you I don't know any. So I assume the bass guitar was following the lead guitar riffs because the bass didn't shine in this record whatsoever. Had a presence, yeah, because it's not like I didn't acknowledge that there was a bass guitar in the mix, but you know the bassist wasn't necessarily too flamboyant with the playing on this record, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, you know. If they played a part, they have a frequency to themselves. If they fill that frequency with the lower end of that riff, then it's beneficial to the record, and it's a good thing. Some great riffs. There's a good standard. Like, it doesn't drop off anywhere in the record where you think, oh, this is a set of songs that hasn't appealed to me, which does happen. You know, sometimes you'll get halfway through a record and then they'll just put the crap songs like from the halfway point onwards. Very frequently we've had that, but that's not the case with this. Perhaps the original record was 9 songs, but we had a 10-track one, so perhaps we were listening to the 2001 sort of review of the record where Fire Burns Below was thrown on. I won't talk too much about that track because it was like completely different to the rest, but it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it personally. And what more can I say? The guitar solos were very good. People were a big fan of Beyond the Realms of Death, that guitar solo. And I didn't think it was, the best solo I've heard. I didn't, it's not like I was listening to B.B. King, but they gave the guitarist enough time to really add a little more soul to the mix as far as the lead guitar is concerned. And I appreciated it. As the time went on and on and on through that solo, I appreciated it more and more. I didn't really pay attention to the solos as a whole in the record because it's just white noise to me. It just fades in the background. I'm not a fan of solos no more. I want to hear just like good melodies, good rhythms. That's good for me. Rhythmically, there's some great grooves on the record. Not in the groove metal sense, but more so just in them jamming well, having a good idea and sort of making it a great toe tapper and, really emphasizing in the right areas. That's my opinion. If I'm going to rate this record, stained class, I'm going to give it 2 ratings, okay? I feel I need to give it justice by giving it 2 ratings. Me personally, my personal taste, I'm not going to return to this record. Priest isn't a band at this stage, 4 records in. It's not something that touches me. Well, you know what? I'm going to say definitely if I was a teenager and I came across this sound, I'd listen to it a fair few times and I'd piece out my favourite tunes from this record, my favourite ideas and riffs. Definitely. At this point in my time, no. With the amount of music I've heard, whether it be punk or pop or metal, I've got better, in my world, better alternatives to listen to. As far as metal's concerned, it's not a very flawed record. It's not a very flawed record. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Generally speaking, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. As far as my personal tastes are concerned, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. And that's very respectable. And I say that's respectable because I probably won't be returning to this record just due to my own personal tastes. But I got to give it 5 because I want to respectfully state that it's an incredibly well put together record. There's time invested into this. As a guitarist, personally, the riffs are tight as hell. The record was put out in 78. It's obviously ahead of its time. And, bruh, everyone's saying Priest are at the forefront of it all. I can't hate on it. And I know it sounds like 5 out of 10. I always have to do some degree of disclaimer, right? 5 out of 10 might sound bad, but it's not. It's just the middle ground for me, okay? Because I'm never gonna. Let's be fair. I don't think I've ever given a 10 out. To be honest with you, never given a 10. There's always flaws. There's always a weak link in the chain. But yeah, I'm not gonna explain myself. Let's call it a 7.5. Generally speaking, to the broader market. That's what I'll give this record. And I'm signing out. Peace. I'm looking forward to listening to more Priest. If you want me to check out more Priest, let me know. If you know a record from Priest, perhaps later on down the line in the 80s or so forth, that I might connect with a little more differently, let me know.